Well, I hope everyone is back from the break now, and I'd like to introduce, Richard Karalus. He's the Director of Research Compliance for the Office of Research Compliance, and he's going to speak for a few minutes today about regulatory groups and ethical standards.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So my name is Dr. Richard Karalus. I'm the director of the Office of Research Compliance, and we oversee the IRB, which is human research, IACUC, which is animal research. We do export controls and conflict of interest. And just to let you know, if you come to me and ask me for help, I'm not a member of any of these committees. I oversee them, but the committees stand as independent committees. So I can advocate for you, but I can't make decisions, and I definitely cannot make the committees make a decision for you. So just to set that clear, I oversee these committees, but they have to stand independent of the university. So anyway, our IRB has approximately 1,500 active studies going at the university. Our IACUC has about 125 studies, just to give you an idea of the volume. We also have about 2,200 exempt human subject research studies going on at the university. So we do quite a lot of business, and we know our stuff. For COI, we actually process about 5,100 conflict of interest disclosures a year, and that doesn't include the individual conflict of interest reviews that we'll do on individual studies, both human and research studies. So we have a pretty tremendous volume going through our office. So first of all, I'm going to talk about things to be proactive on, things that will help you get your research done quicker. I also want to point out that our office is not here to harass you. We're not here to give you a hard time. We're not here to make things difficult. I've been a researcher for over a decade, and I understand compliance. It's difficult. It's not fun to do. You don't consider it part of your goals as to what you want to do, but it's a necessity. All of the regulations that we follow are, for the most part, federal and state regulations. We don't make these up. We don't put them in place to like I said, make things harder for you. And we're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you're compliant, because if you aren't compliant, it's not us who's going to be coming down on you. It's going to be the federal government who's coming down on you. So, as much as it is an annoyance, we need to get it right for you. So I'm kind of here to help you and provide you with, some helpful advice, where to go, who can help you, and how we can make things easiest for you. So the items to be most proactive on are, kind of as follows. Make sure your training is up to date. Not only your training, but the training of your team. You don't know how many protocols, both human subjects research and animal research, that the approval is going to be held up because one member of your team doesn't have the training. In some cases, you can remove that member from the team and get approved and then add them back. But in many cases, if it's a key member and you remove them, your study is going to be considered you don't have the proper resources, and we're not going to be able to approve it. So make sure when you're putting together a study that everybody has the proper training. And we have training resources. It's on my slide. Serena Dietz, not a doctor, can help you, assist you what training programs you need. For the most part, our trainings are online. We use Citi. For some of the animal programs, it could be in-person training. And if you're going to need in-person training, make sure you contact the IACUC early, because many of those are just scheduled on a regular basis, and you don't want to miss one and have your study held up because the next one isn't for a month or two, or maybe even more. So be proactive, look at your training, what you need, make sure everybody has your training. In general, if you're doing human research, you're going to need a number of courses on Citi. Animal research will require some in-person LAF training programs, in addition to some Citi training. Conflict of interest, you're going to need conflict of interest training. That's something new from the government in the last couple of years. It's a pretty short course. It's on Citi, but conflict of interest training is a requirement, and we do track that. Also, what's coming down the pipe is export controls and research security training. This is a new thing from the government. It's called NSPM 33. It has to do with research security. They still haven't provided all of the guidance, but probably within the next 6 months, you're going to be seeing an additional training requirement if you do research on research security. So make sure you look at that. We will be tracking that. That is something that the government really is biting down on. So make sure we get it done. Review times. I'll talk a little bit about review times. Our IRB actually has really good review times. In the past, if you've been at this university for a while, we used to have review times that were double and triple what our numbers are now, and we've managed to bring those down. So if you have a full committee risk study, it takes about 43 days to get it through the full committee and get it approved. These are median times, so depending upon what your study is, it could take more or sometimes less, but these are median times to approval. So for full committee, if it has to go, in general, it will take 43 days. These are human research studies. For expedited research, it's around 15 days. And for exempt studies, it's around 13 days. And almost all of those numbers are below the national average. So we're doing actually quite well with our research numbers on the IRB. I know if you do IRB studies, many people complain, oh, our protocol is really long. It's about a little under 30 pages. A lot of those questions are going to be not applicable if you're dealing with expedited or exempt studies. So even though it looks daunting, many of the sections will most likely be not applicable if you have minimal risk type studies. We're actually working on a new protocol for the IRB, which will be much shorter. It'll probably be about half the size of it. And it's designed mainly for exempt studies. So exempt and expedited, I should say. And what it's going to do is as you answer questions, it's going to refer you to different documents that you need to complete. Rather than having it all in one and having one big long protocol, it's going to kind of give you the answer. If you answer not applicable here, just go to the next section. Next section, if you answer that you have, an item that needs to be addressed, it will give you another worksheet to complete. So it's a little bit nicer than what we have now in that you don't have to go and answer all these questions, not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. It will get rid of the sections that you don't need to fill out. If you've never done an IRB study, we have our clinical research office, Kim Brunton and Pam Anderson, can help you put together a clinical study. They will sit down with you and actually help you fill out the forms and help you submit it to the IRB. So I definitely would encourage people to take advantage of that. For social and behavioral studies, we have our behavioral research office, which is Dr. Chris Marks. He will do the same thing for the social and behavioral studies. You can meet with Chris and he will sit down and put together your study and help you, give you advice on how to fill out the questions and what you can and cannot do to be exempt, expedited, or whatever the level of risk, minimum risk you can put in your study, and he'll help you submit those also. And we talk with those offices on a regular basis. If they have questions that they can't answer, they come to us, but they're a great resource, especially if you've never done human subjects research. On the IACUC side, our reviews are anywhere between 30 and 90 days, depending upon the complexity of your study. So one of the things I want to stress is if you're putting together a study, submit it early. Don't wait till the last minute to submit it. If you need it approved, then submit it early. 30 to 90 days is going to be the amount of time I'm going to give you for an IACUC study, about at least 60 days for an IRB human subjects research study. So put that into your schedule. Don't expect to submit something and have it approved the next day, because in most cases, that's not going to happen. Also with continuing reviews, if you're doing continuing reviews, and this goes for both the human studies and the animal studies, you're going to get reminders through our Click Submission study. Don't ignore those reminders. They're sent at 90 days, 60 days, and 30 days. Get your continuing reviews in well in advance, at least 30 days for a human study and at least 60 days for an animal study. Because even though your lab state may be tomorrow, if you submit it today, most likely your study is going to lapse, because the approval date is the date that we approve it in the office, not the date that you submit it. So don't expect to submit it a day before it lapses and avoid a lapse, because that is not going to happen. So submit your continuing reviews well in advance. You get those reminders So there's no reason to allow studies to lapse. If you do, it's going to require you to do additional work on both sides. You're going to have to describe why your study lapsed, what you're going to do in the future to prevent it from lapsing. Need to submit an R&I, reportable new information to the IRB, in addition to submitting your continuing reviews. So like I said, don't let them lapse. If you do have an emergency, there's a reason, a valid reason to expedite research. You can call me directly, and as long as you can justify it, hey, the funding agency needs this study reviewed, by tomorrow or whatever. Sometimes we can accommodate you. But if it's of your own accord, I don't feel much sympathy for those who just put things off and tend not to expedite those as much as I can. If you have just-in-times, a lot of funding agencies will have just-in-times where you need to get approval. We have a process for the IRB to submit a just-in-time. Many times for just-in-times, you may not have all the information for the study. We're not going to issue you an approval for your just-in-time, but we will issue a letter that's always accepted by the NIH or NSF, stating that we've looked at your project and we don't see any issues with approving it once you've submitted a complete study. That's not a permission to go ahead. That's not approval to start your study. That is basically a placeholder that will satisfy the NIH and NSF for just-in-time type studies. The other thing I want to point out is export controls. A lot of people don't consider export controls, and this is something that the government is really clamping down in the last few years. Export controls is an issue because we have many foreign persons on campus who may work in your labs, or you may be a foreign person, and we might need to make sure that everything is good with you. Especially with sensitive technologies. Got to make sure that we protect those, and in many cases we can just put together a technology control plan. It's a basic template, and you will basically state how you're going to protect the technology based on the level of protection. There are different levels of protection, all from the simplest, there's just a few minor things that you need to put in place, all the way down to ITAR studies. ITAR are sensitive Department of Defense, usually national security type projects. In most cases, we do not do ITAR projects. So if you're going to sit down with Raytheon and develop the newest, best missile in your laboratory, we will not be able to accommodate that at UB. We don't have spaces that are vetted to work with ITAR technology, aside from the most basic information type studies. So like I said, ITAR is sensitive national security Department of Defense programs. Most people don't deal with those, but I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody is considering those. We do have another company that we work with called Kubrick, which can do ITAR type studies, but it needs to be done in their space. Those are kind of special projects. Most of the time they're high level funding, because you need high level funding to do ITAR. But in most cases, if you're considering doing ITAR research, we don't do it. Like I said, export controls and national security, though, are becoming more and more prevalent in the lab. The government is throwing down more and more regulations on research security, and we need to be cognizant of that. Conflict of interest is another area where we need to be cognizant. It kind of ties in a little bit with export controls. One of the things that if you're doing research, you want to make sure you have on file is an annual disclosure. Every September, actually in about a week, we're going to be sending out our new annual disclosure. So annually, you need to fill out a new annual disclosure form. If you've already done it, it's just updating your old annual disclosure. If you've never done it, contact our office and we can set you up to do it. But conflict of interest is another thing that I see holding up studies all the time. And that's not only the human subjects research, that's any research study that goes through sponsored projects that's federally funded. They require a conflict of interest review. And the only time we can do a conflict of interest review is if we have your annual disclosure. We basically take what you disclosed and we'll compare it to whatever your study is, just to make sure you don't have conflicts. And if you do have a conflict, it's not a disaster. I kind of hate the word conflict because it makes it sound bad. But, if you're working with a company and you have stock in the company, which is, very acceptable, we can put together a plan where, we might limit you from analyzing the data or have somebody else analyze the data for you, depending upon your level of conflict. But we can definitely accommodate those type of studies. So don't be afraid of conflict of interest. We have standard templates for putting together management plans. We have hundreds of management plans in place right now. And it's just a matter of getting a jump on it. You don't want to wait till the end and file your disclosure and all of a sudden, oops, we need a management plan. It's going to delay things. If you have your conflict of interest disclosure, that's one of the first things we do for studies is we do the conflict of interest review while your study is being reviewed. And like I said, again, like training, you can't imagine the number of studies I see where there might be 10, 15 people on a study and one person doesn't have their conflict of interest disclosure in. Sometimes I've seen situations where they're away on sabbatical or on vacation and you can't get a hold of them. That's going to hold up your study. So, like I said, make sure everybody, not only yourself, but everybody on your study team has a conflict of interest disclosure on file. If you have it on file, the COI review, the conflict of interest review will take place in the background. You'll never see about it or hear about it unless you need a management plan. But again, those are required for all federally funded studies, all funded studies actually at UB, in addition to all human subjects research studies. So that's kind of my quick piece of advice for you on doing research at the university. I don't know if we want to do any questions or if you're holding questions or not, but that's the advice that I can give you. Be proactive on it. It's we're not here to harass you. We're here to make sure that that we check all of the boxes on regulations for the university and for the federal regulations to make sure that you don't get in trouble. And we have lots of resources that we provide to help you take care of compliance issues and help you submit studies. Take advantage of those resources. All right, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. We also have a quiz poll for this session also. If you could just take a few minutes to answer those, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see everybody kind of sees that you need to file an annual disclosure, which is great. But I do see, about a little over a third of people weren't aware of the clinical research office or the social and behavioral office to assist people in preparing submissions. Like I said, that's really important. If you've never done a submission, if you're a student, or if you have students who are putting together submissions, as a mentor, instead of you sitting down with them, you can refer them over to the CRO or the BRO, and they will sit because they're probably even more knowledgeable than your mentors on putting together applications and can really help and assist people.